Speaking of Tommy Rich, we had been talking about Tommy, and he had a kind of a legendary feud back in the early '80s with Mad Dog
Buzz
Buzz
Sawyer.
Sawyer. Did you work with Buzz Sawyer?
I knew him.
And
I've worked with him, but did I ever wrestle him? No. I don't think I was ever in the ring with him. But I was around him. I know again, I liked him. It was a kind of a gimmick, the Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, but
was he like that outside the ring? I mean, what kind of a guy was
don't
he?
piss him off. I mean, he was I'll give you an Austin Idol story, kind of true. No, it's true. Like you asked before, how was he to get along with? He could be a prick to get along with.
Mhm.
Didn't want to do this, didn't want to do that.
Idol.
Idle.
Okay.
So Robert Fuller was booking here, Memphis, and Idle didn't like how the match was going to go or what was supposed to be doing this or doing this. So he says, I'm just going to walk out through the people and leave
Ooh.
before he wrestled.
Mm-hmm.
Sold that house. You know what that was, you know the thing.
Yeah.
So
It wouldn't have been good.
it wouldn't have been good. So Robert Fuller says to him, Idle, see that guy standing there? It's Buzz Sawyer. He said, before you get to the third row, he will take you down and break your leg. So you just go on and walk out that door, and we'll see.
Is that right?
Consequently, Idle never left, and Bill went to the ring and did what they asked him to do. And Buzz Sawyer was he was chomping at the bit, wanting to do it. Yeah, go and do it. Go Idle, walk. So anyway, that was that story, and it's a true story, by the way.
Great story. Great story.
Shit like that don't happen in the wrestling business today.
I imagine not. No. Eddie Gilbert, hot stuff.
Not here. I don't talk about people that ain't here.
Okay.
And if you're not here to defend yourself, it's hard. I mean, I could say anything I wanted, but it's just like, you know.
Kurt Hennig. Did you work with Kurt Hennig?
No, but I've met him 2 or 3 times when he come in to work with Lawler.
Right.
Seemed like he was a nice enough guy. I knew his dad in Australia when Harley raced, and his dad came to Australia for Jim Barnett, and me and Barnes used to do jobs in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew him that way. He was Larry Hennig, right? Wasn't that his dad's name?
Right.
Yeah,
Larry the Axe.
Larry the Axe.
Yeah.
So I knew him in Australia, him and Harley, but I never worked with him in America, you know, so I didn't know much about him once we got here, but hell of a worker, big, tough sucker. So was Harley.
Let's ask about Harley Race. Did you work with Harley Race at all? I know Lawler did a long time ago.
No, Lawler when they would come in for the title and all that kind of thing. See, that's another, you asked me about the Southern Belt one time, or how it was. When you was the Southern champion, if the World's champion came into town and you had the Southern Belt, you wrestled the World's champion, whoever the Southern champion was.
Right.
So, you didn't have to have the belt, but it worked better in your favor if you did. If they put the belt, Southern Belt on you, you knew, well, if the World champion comes in, I'm going to get the wrestling. So that was the reason with the Southern Belt and how people wanted it.
How important? I mean, that's another question. I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to ask you, especially back in the day, and watching Memphis wrestling, it seemed like everybody was out for a belt, the Southern Heavyweight Championship or the Tag Championship, or for a while you had the Mid-America Championship too. How important were the belts? I mean, what was it? More money? Was it?
Well, the Southern one was if the champion came to town,
right,
he was going to wrestle him.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gave you job security, because if you have the belt.
Good point.
So yeah, apart from that, yeah, you go $1 or $2 more maybe the night of the show to be the champion, but prestige more than anything else.
Okay, all right.
And like I said, the Southern champion always wrestled the World's champion. So
you've wrestled all over the world, haven't you? I mean, You wrestled in Japan,
Yeah.
Australia. What's the difference between wrestling here, or the audience, or the fans, between here and say Japan?
Well, Japan, they're very polite. If you do
They're
something
not throwing
nice
beer
and they
bottles
say
at
no,
you?
and then they'll clap and they sit there and applaud you and all that kind of stuff. And they're very polite people, and it's a very clean place.
Is that hard to get yourself going with a crowd like that? I mean, wouldn't a rowdier crowd that's screaming and yelling and stomping, does that get
Yeah,
you in
but
the...
you kind of know that in Japan how they were. And if it does, if you're like Tony Charles, Bill Dundee match, I don't know if you've seen it.
I absolutely have, yes.
They love that in Japan, and they'll sit and clap and ooh. So that kind of gets you
More
going on
Greco-Roman
Yeah,
type.
right, yeah. So they like that, and I like wrestling in Japan, and I like the people were nice. I mean, can't talk to them, but they're nice.
It helps be nice when you can't
Yeah,
understand what
right,
they're
yeah,
saying. They may be cussing you out, Bill. You
Could
don't
be.
know.
Yeah.
And what about Australia?
Cultivated to be the same as the Americans. Jim Barnett came over and brought an American crew, Mark Lewin, Skull Murphy, Brute Bernard, and all them, courtesy of Care. So Australia was geared the same way as America because it was American promoter.
So they were a little more like we would be.
Yeah, American. But when me and Barnes started with Hal Morgan in the clubs, they appreciated more scientific type wrestling, and that's what they got in the leagues clubs in Sydney. So they did both, but the ones that came to the Coliseums were all American way of thinking.
Here's a question for you, Bill. Not that I ever knew of, but maybe you can shed some light on this. Did you ever wrestle in a mask?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well,
Under the mask.
Under the mask. Danny Davis and I got this great idea of the American Eagles. And we had the whole suit, red, white, and blue. Well, you've seen being in my office. You see it on that wall back there. So we had a mask on. It was a mask outfit. And we have went to the show, wrestled as Danny Davis in one match, Bill Dundee in a single match, and then went back at the main event as the tag as the American Eagles, and the people never knew.
Really?
So that was our mask thing. And the American Eagles got over. The people liked them.
How long did that go?
Oh, about a year or so, I guess. Though.
Really?
Yeah.
And nobody ever put two and two together with you?
No, we didn't do it every night, but we have done it at, different things just to see.
And that was about when?
The year?
Yeah,
80, mid-80s.
Okay, all right. Something I've often wondered about, and we had talked about this a little bit before the interview started. I'm going to use your own words, Bill. Something you said actually in the last interview, that wrestling has always been predetermined. It's not fake.
Right.
The bumps are real if you get hurt.
Right.
But it's been predetermined. You knew
right.
what was going on. I never actually thought about this watching because I was so focused on the two guys or the four guys, the actual wrestling taking place. But there was always another person in there with you, the referee. How important was... I mean, he had to be in the know, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was important, and a bad referee can kind of screw your match up. Calhoun was a good referee. Frank Morrell was a wrestler turned referee. Who else did we have?
Morton.
Paul Morton.
Paul Morton.
He was an ex-wrestler turned referee. That was Ricky's dad.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the referee's very important.
So they knew what was going on too, and they knew what to
right.
do. When
yeah,
to do
you
it.
have to all be clued in on what's going on.
So did you get together before the matches and tell them when to do this and when to do that? You're going to do this. He has to do that.
No, how can I put it to you? There was a formula of damn near every match was set up the same way. And now who was winning? That may be a little the referee. All the referee had to know was count 3. The guy's shoulders down, 1, 2, 3. The guy don't kick out, that's his fault.
How did he know when to do that 3 count. I mean,
The guy back. When your shoulders are down a wrestling match, that's the idea.
well, they're
You've
down
pinned
there
him.
several
Right.
times though.
Yeah, and 1, 2, but you kick out. The
So
guy
how did
still is
how did the
sharp.
referee know exactly what move that you were going to put on, say,
He
Lawler?
didn't. When you went down, the referee, when you were down there and Lawler was on top of me, he dropped down
I
the
see.
count 1, 2, and you kicked out on 2.
And if you didn't, that was
And
it.
if you didn't, you were done.
Ah,
And sometimes that would happen.
it leads me to another question. I hope this isn't a sensitive subject. If it is, we don't have to answer. A lot of times today, I don't watch wrestling today, but
I don't
if you
either.
do, you can actually see the two guys calling out their moves to each other. So unprofessional. It's
Right.
it ruins the whole thing. How did you do that? How did you?
Very carefully.
Because I never saw you.
No, and you really didn't have to. You don't have to yell at, hey, backdrop, arm drag.
So you didn't get together before the match and say, hey, this is the way it's going to start. I'm going to throw you against the ropes. I'm going to come back with a sunset
No,
flip.
you never knew that. You never knew that was coming up in the match. You just, but there was a formula. It's like making a cup of coffee. You put the coffee in, you put the hot water in, you put the cream and the sugar in, you stir it all up, and you got a cup of coffee. Wrestling matches was the same way. Good guy, bad guy, referee. And there was a formula of the things you was going to do. There's only one way you can arm drag him. There's only one way you can hip toss him, put him in a headlock, or do what you're going to do. So how you stood your body language, you could know what the other guy was going to do. Today, I don't know what to do today. When I go to the indie shows, some of them kids, I have no clue what they're doing. They don't either. But and it's hard. I mean, it's all right for me to sit here after 50 years and say how easy this is. But they don't take what we did. They think they've invented the wheel, and they haven't.
No, they've made it square.
Yeah, right.
It
It needs oil. Yeah. So right. So and it's to pick on them. They have no TV, and there's no guidance. See, in the good old days, the booker's nuts was on the line every night. The show was in your hands. And I've been the booker and said, you don't want to do it? Go home. I don't need you. And just send this ass home. I don't know what they do today. But if you don't run your own show, it's like a puppeteer. The puppet only dances as good as the puppeteer.
Mm-hmm.
And if the puppeteer don't know how to work the puppet don't dance. And the kids today, there's nobody running it.
It's a lost art.
Lost art, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, and so and the booker's certainly a lost art. They don't know what the booker is. So it's just like,
Bill, you know what you ought to do? You should write a book.
write another book.
No, you've written a
Right.
book. We're going to
Yeah.
advertise it right now, folks.
I have wrote a book.
Let's hold up that book, Bill.
Yes,
This-
sir. That's it.
This is a fascinating book. I've read it myself a couple of times. It's a great source of material for the true wrestling fan, especially old school Memphis wrestling and Bill
Right.
Dundee. It is called "If You Don't Want the Answer,
Don't ask the question.
Don't Ask the Questions" by Bill Dundee and co-written by
Randy Hales.
Randy Hales. And we're going to give you a phone number right now that you can call to order or get information about this book and his DVDs. Bill has some
We
great
have a whole bunch of
DVDs. Classic Memphis Wrestling.
They're all
Memphis
classic Memphis, and they're all different. Some mainstays, the tags. That one's me and Lawler, just me and Lawler, and this one's the 70s. So.
And they're great. I've seen them, folks. If you'd like to sit down and relive history, wrestling history, that's the first place you should start. As a matter of fact, you can call 901-305-3251. Again, that's 901-305-3251, or just text for more merchandise information, and somebody will get right back to you. Also, we're going to put up all the information on a screen, probably either at the end or during these interviews. And we're going to take a break right now. We'll be right back with more Bill Dundee Sets It Straight.
Well, good. We can get some more coffee.